There is a space in my heart where I find the truth. I find me in you, a truth beyond what you may see now. But when we are one, we bring more good about. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. I see with new eyes, allow and unfold, embrace and let go, trust the flow. There's a freedom in love when you follow your heart. Together we are stronger than we could ever be apart. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. Breathe in and out. Slowly feel all that's around you. All that you feel, all that you know. Let it go. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. Yeah, when we unite. Oh, we unite. Yeah, yeah, when we unite. Yeah, yeah, You are welcome here. Love is welcome here. Peace is welcome here. You are welcome here. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. I am Reverend Cindy Grimes with Center for Spiritual Living Ocala, and I want to thank you for joining us today and spending a little bit of time with us whenever it is that you're watching, whether you're with us live or you're watching the recording. You are welcome here, and I'm so glad and appreciate your time because we know how precious time is. And I'm just affirming that the conversation today is worth your time, that you're glad that you tuned in, that you listened to us. Our intention is always that you get some kind of understanding or tool or something that is going to help you as you go through your day-to-day journey of your life. And so we are talking, yes, welcome. Here we go. These are the things that are important to us at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. And I think a person's values or an organization's values are super important because that tells you what they're about. So if you're looking at this list of values and thinking, wow, those things are right up my alley, then maybe you have found your tribe. And so the very first thing on our list is spiritual growth and practice. It is the purpose that we come together at CSL Ocala, is to grow together and to learn from one another. And it's practice. It's practice. It's not like you get it and it's done. It's like, life. You brush your teeth every day. You take a shower every day. We do spiritual practices every day, and it helps to make life work and for things to flow a little bit easier. So we value love. We believe that that is the truth of who we are, that God is love. If you call that the source, that creative energy, the universe, whatever it is that created us, we believe ultimately it is made of love. And that is who we are and where we come from and where we return to at the end of our human journey. We value appreciation and believe that what we appreciate grows in our awareness and our understanding. So it's like, it's the ultimate prayer, I think, is to be in gratitude for whatever is in your life in the moment. We value community. That's why we gather, is that there are things that we can do individually and that we must do individually, but there are also things that we do collectively that accelerates the growth and understanding for all of us. So it's important to come together as a group. And we value freedom in all of its expression, freedom of creativity, creative expression, freedom to be who we came here to be, and to unencumber ourselves of all the baggage of could have and should have and all of those ways that we put ourselves down, that we release all of that. We value creativity. We believe that this is how we are the same as our source, right? It says that God created us in his image and likeness. And so here at Centers for Spiritual Living, we don't think that God or this thing that created us looks like a human being, but that we have the same capacity, the creative capacity to create our experience, or to not necessarily create our experience, but how we take it in, how we interpret our experience is entirely up to us. And that's part of our creative capacity. Anyway, we value also health and wholeness and well-being of body, of mind, of emotions, of relationships, and also of our finances, which is the last thing on our list there, along with generosity. So that is what we're about at Centers for Spiritual Living Ocala, our values. And our vision is that we are a model center for spiritual living, as evidenced by the transformational impact we have, not just on our community, like the people that come in or the people that tune in, but also the larger spiritual community of Centers for Spiritual Living, because we are just one of several hundred communities that are located all over the world, most of them in the US and Canada. But we are an international movement, not just this little Center for Spiritual Living in Ocala, Florida, but we are all over. And so, yeah, we hope to have an impact, not just on our spiritual community, but the larger CSL organization and the communities that we live in. Like here we are in Ocala, Florida, Ocala, Marion County. So we want to see differences in our community and feel like we can be part of that, of bringing positive change and transformation. And then the last thing, our mission is to empower individuals to awaken to the power and presence that lies within and all around them so they can live their best lives. That means this thing that we call God exists everywhere, right? All knowing, all powerful, everywhere present. We can't not be part of it, even if we don't want to. We can maybe not recognize it, but we are always part of it, just like every cell in your body is a part of your human body and your expression. So that is what we are about at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. And this year, we are doing a study. This is actually a course, a curriculum that I have created that we call um, Self Renewal. And self stands for social, emotional, life focused renewal. So it really is about healing our emotions and understanding them better and being able to manage them better, as well as understanding other people and where they're coming from. So that is our inquiry for this year. And this month we're talking about paradigms and possibilities. Paradigms being those belief systems that we come into. But before I get too far into that, I'm going to bring in our co-presenter for today, and that is Donna Davis, who is a practitioner here at CSL Ocala. Hey, Donna.
What's up,
How's it
fam?
going? How's it going? I love to see your smile. And, we've already done our thing this morning. We actually already
Yeah.
did. And it was
Mhm.
so much fun that instead of
We
being
did
tired
several
out,
things already.
we did several things already, right? And
Yeah, kind of cool.
it looks to me like you are energized.
I am. The food, asasalia, was awesome. And today's circle discussion was absolutely incredible. I'm so glad that we do that now. And I don't know, it's a good day.
It is a good day. It is a good day. And
Yeah.
so we'll get to have some more of this conversation because it is a big thing,
Mhm.
both in what we're talking about at the center in person, right? Wonder
Mhm.
and cultivating wonder. And I think it like I said, dovetails with this conversation because this is all about identifying paradigms and releasing what doesn't serve us. So
Correct.
there's two parts to that. There's identifying the paradigms, and then there's letting go of it, but also then accepting what new thing is wanting to emerge. So we've been all in that process at
Yeah,
CSL.
that's that GPS that you talk about, Cindy, where you're talking about you can't know, even if you know where you want to go, you have to know where your starting place is.
Exactly.
And you have to put that into the system in order to for the God positioning system to work for you. So that's where we are.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna let you pray us in, and then we'll dive into this conversation.
All righty.
Terrific. Thanks, Donna.
So welcome everybody. Sunday fun day. I'm so excited to be with y'all this morning. And well, actually it's afternoon. But let us just take this moment to drop in. I've already used my little essential oil here in my palms and just smelling it and breathing it in, allowing my senses to get me acquainted with my body. Allowing my body to slow down and just take this moment to recognize the breath. And as I'm sitting here in this moment, allowing the breath to come to me, I encourage you to do the same thing in this moment. Just becoming aware of your breath. I recognize the allness that is one beautiful, creative life force that lives and moves and has its being in all things. I call this life force God because that is the easiest for me, but whatever works for you, that's fine too. Just recognizing the allness, recognizing that since the allness is everywhere, then it is where I am sitting right now. It is where you are sitting. All of us live and move and have our being in this allness. We cannot be separated from it because we exist in this human form, which is in this particular hemisphere of the world, which is in this solar system, which is in this universe. We are all a part of it. And let's take in the breath that is the oxygen given to me by the trees outside. We're in a symbiotic dance together. And in this moment, the peace and the calm that comes upon me, feeling supported by gravity in my seat, feeling supported by the trees outside, knowing that all of it is here for my joy and my benefit. I am so grateful for this. I'm grateful for everything that's in my life. I am grateful for the very breath that I take. And I invite you to just go down your mind's eye, all the things that you are grateful for in this moment. And if it's hard to find something to be grateful for, then just go back to the breath. I am grateful for this breath. And I release this now, my joy, my love, my gratitude, into the fertile soil that is a law that always lets everything grow. And as I plant my thoughts, my gratitudes into that soil, I know that it multiplies to give me more to be even more grateful for. I release it now, and so it is. Amen. Ashe.
Amen, Ashe, and thank you. And so it is. So it is. Always wonderful to have you pray us in, Donna. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm gonna just pop this up here, a little overview of what self renewal is, so people can
Mm-hmm.
see this. If that idea of social emotional learning is a new phrase, it's something that has been gaining traction in probably the past 20 years, maybe a little less than that. But here we go. This is what it is. The objectives is to expand our social and emotional skills and our understanding. And so that chart there, it's got self management, self awareness, responsible decision making, relationship skills, and social awareness. All of those things are within that umbrella of social emotional learning. So people will, I hope, my intention anyway is for people who go through this inquiry with us this year, that they experience some emotional healing and maybe gain that understanding and principles and tools for knowing how to establish and maintain healthy relationships, and also to heal them when there has been harm, and then for people to learn ways to safely engage in and transform conflict, which I think is a really valuable thing in this day and age. What do you think, Donna?
Oh my goodness. With these kind of tools, you can navigate the world so much easier. It's not to say that there's not pain, because there's pain and we recognize the pain, but to be able to navigate it is a challenge sometimes, because you get triggered left and right by different people going through their own pain.
Right.
And so when you have these different tools that you can reach into your belt and say, oh, let me try this. Sometimes if you do it over and over again, you find that the world starts to shift. I tell people I am like the greatest person in my world. So it's all about me. Everything revolves around me. And it should revolve around me because it's my world.
It's your word, and that's true for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
It really is true for all of us. I am the primary player in the movie that is my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I
Can't
used to
help
be
it, right?
told, I was told that the world doesn't revolve around you. Don't be
Yeah.
selfish. The world doesn't revolve around you. But
Right.
my world does. The world that I craft and create around me
Hmm.
is here for my joy and my pleasure.
Yeah.
And so if something doesn't work for my joy or my pleasure, then I say, okay, it's all right. I'll leave that over there to somebody else's world.
Yeah. And that is a paradigm shift.
Mm-hmm.
It's a paradigm shift, right? To even put yourself in the playing and say, my pleasure, my wants, my needs, my desires are as important, or actually even more important than somebody else's, for me to make sure those needs get met. right? Because who else is going to do it if you don't ensure that for yourself? So
Exactly.
that has been a paradigm shift for me, because, and we talked about this a little bit last week, those roles that we come into of mother, of daughter, of wife, of minister, of all of these things, and
Mhm.
what does that mean for society, for culture, what we've been taught versus how does that actually sit for me, you know? Um, yeah, and I have not always put myself on the list of consideration, as crazy as that is.
That's that greatest degree of love. I'm glad of ADL teaching me that particular thing. If I never picked up any other nugget, was the greatest degree of love, because that also includes me. And in my world, it's all about me. And then I am aware that I'm also in somebody else's world. And so I'm
Hmm.
careful not to, stomp all over their world because if I'm going to be, I'm mindful of their world while they're going through whatever. So if I see somebody going through their pain or somebody going through their joy, I'm empathetic of their pain, or I join them in their joy, knowing that it's uplifting their world.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I'm
Yeah.
careful to say, does this bother mine? Because if it's going to encroach on my world, then I just don't engage.
Yeah.
I don't give it as much, energy as I would.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I'm going to put up this another definition up here, and I think I used this last week, but just to, okay, folks joining in. All right, here we go with what this word means, or this phrase, the paradigm shift, right? A fundamental change in the underlying assumptions of our reality, aka our belief systems. We talked about this over lunch a little bit,
Hmm.
that we have this love of historical fiction. So you can watch a TV show, a Netflix, like, Dalton Abbey or something like that, right? And you see the times that they were living in, the society, the culture, all of that. And it was their paradigm. That's how they lived. And us being here in the 21st century have a different paradigm about how life is supposed to be and how we show up and all of those things. But it's all made up. It's all made up. We just live in it like it's the truth,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes you can like be removed from the situation to actually see what's there in front of you. Sometimes it's hard to see it when you're like in it, when you're in the midst of it.
Hmm.
But we all have these belief systems that we live our lives inside of. And very often those rules are hidden,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Until you bump up against something and it, kind of hits you the wrong way, or you see somebody else doing something different and go like, wow, why, how come I can't have that? Or, what happened that I don't see it that way? Or, it's, well, I don't know if I'm explaining it very well or not, but
No, I get it. I completely get what you're saying. Um,
okay, good.
I don't know. I think it feels like the rules are different for different people. And I think it's just the way that the rules have been laid out from the beginning. Whoever created whatever system that is,
Yeah.
if they were the ones in charge, it's going to work for them the best. And in others, it may not work so well for.
Right. Or there are things that work for a time and then they
Hmm.
don't work anymore. Like to go
Working
back to the Dalton, down, however you say it, Downton
Downton
Abbey,
Abbey. Yeah.
right? Like there was a framework for how people behaved, how women behaved, how men behaved,
Hmm.
what's allowable for this group versus that group. And again, all of these like social norms that were created by somebody and we continue to perpetuate them and we think that's just the way it's supposed to be,
Yeah. Until
right?
somebody comes along and says, well, it's working for you, but it's not working for the rest of us. And
Right.
then it's up to us to then adjust it
Right.
so that the world works for everyone, not
Yes.
just the person who created it. Yeah, it needs to work for everyone. Because not
Right.
everybody's going to demand that. There's going to be people who don't want all of that pomp and circus. They just want a simple, yeah, I don't want that. And it's
Yeah.
okay. They shouldn't have to have it if it's not something they're into.
So I want to talk about, there are beliefs that we have that serve us, that work well.
Hmm.
All of us, I think.
Hmm.
Otherwise, we wouldn't keep doing the things over and over again.
Hmm.
But there are also things that don't serve us well. And sometimes those paradigms, because we're in it so much, it's hard to see. Like, I can't see the forest for the trees. I'm too much in it,
Right.
which is why we do practices, mindfulness practices and things like that to help us get some objectivity on our situation. But
Hmm.
one of the things, a question that was posed to me in the ministerial program, right? Some ministers can just like, pay and have a shingle, right? Pay and say I'm a minister. But we actually, I mean, it's like 4 years of study that we did on top of, having the degree and all to a degree in consciousness studies. That's what I did as a minister in this movement. And so one of the questions I thought was just fascinating is like, how do we know the things that we know? How do we know the things that we know? And so the answer was there could be four ways of knowing. It is probably more than that, but this is how it was broken down for me. We can know by direct observation, right? That's like scientific knowing, right? I see it, I can experiment with it. You can see it and do the same thing, and we can know together that this is true through our own observation
Hmm.
and experimentation, right? So that's one very obvious way. The other way that we can know is through logic and reason, right? So I know how the world works. I can take those parameters and apply them to this situation to see how logically this thing is going to turn out. And we can have a conversation about that thing
Hmm.
and come to some kind of agreement,
Hmm.
right? So that is, both of those things are like objective knowing because other people can be in on the conversation,
Hmm.
right? Then there's the kind of knowing that only you can know for yourself, and the knowing that I can know for myself, like intuition.
Hmm.
You meet somebody and you know there's something there between you, good or bad, or what else? Like knowing who's on the other end of the phone. The phone rings, and before you can see who it is, you already know who that is. Like there's something to our intuition. And then the last thing, it would be like revelation, like something just drops in and you suddenly know it and don't know why. So that's how it was expressed to me, and that made a lot of sense. And those last two ways are the subjective ways of knowing that we sometimes push to the corner or push to the side because I can't, I can tell you about my experience, but you can't tell me about its validity or its truth for me. And the same, I can't do it for you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. So I don't know if there's any other things. Maybe we should put it out to the group, see if those who are watching can think of any other way of knowing. But to me, that
I
makes
think, I mean, that feels very true for me. All four of
hmm
those, it feels very true.
yeah. So then, how do you know if something is the truth or if it's just your thing? So here's what I put up for this thing. So is it knowledge or is it a false belief system, something that you were domesticated? I use that word that comes from Don Miguel Ruiz, um, that we're all domesticated, just
Hmm.
like you can domesticate a dog or even something as massive as an elephant, or we can tame animals, right, through behavioral things. So how do we know if what we're believing is actually the truth or something that we have been taught by somebody else that maybe is no longer true or doesn't work for us? So to me, to know if something is objectively true, they have to meet all of those criteria, right? Is it observable? Is it, for other people, does it make logical sense? Does it work for me intuitively? And the last piece, the revelation, sometimes that comes, sometimes it doesn't. But
Mhm.
Um, anyway.
Sometimes there's just a feeling there that says that this is true.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
it's not like a big aha thing, but there's just something. Some people get goosebumps. There's just a feeling that says, "Oh, this is true," and it's usually a very soft. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't scream at you or anything like.
Right. Now, we had some people at the center today. A couple of them said, when I walked in the door, I saw, like somebody said, I saw the tree of life. And then you said something that triggered a memory for me or whatever. And they were like, and I knew I was in the right place. Maybe it's the color scheme. Maybe it's something somebody said. Maybe it's a scent. Maybe it's a picture on the wall. Or maybe it's a few of those things. And you just get this intuitive sense of like,
This is
yes,
it.
this is it.
I felt that
Right?
feeling too. When I
Yeah.
first, I looked at the books. I was walking through the books area and I just started looking at some of the titles and I was like, oh, yes, this is it.
Right. Right. So I think um, I think it's important to honor those ways of knowing for ourselves, our own intuition, our own direct revelation,
Mhm,
um, even though we can't corroborate it with other people. Like it's a really important way of knowing.
mhm. For me,
Your
it's the
body tells you.
experience. Once
Hmm.
I've been through the experience myself, I can say, okay, I know what this feels like.
Hmm.
And then I share it with others. But just because you have an experience doesn't necessarily mean the experience is correct either.
Hmm.
It's different for each person, kind of like roller coasters. I love roller coasters. Oh, we should go on a roller coaster. Well, our son at like 10 did not agree that roller
Hmm.
coasters were wonderful. He, in fact, was terrified of the experience. And we convinced him it'll be fun, it'll be great. And he gets on the roller coaster and it was awful for him. And we
Hmm.
never, ever, ever did that to him again. But
Yeah.
had I just paid attention to honoring my child and the fact that my child said, I don't believe that this is going to be for me. And he just
Hmm.
had an intuitive knowing that said, this is not for me. And later on, we found out why. And he just expressed that because mechanically and because he thinks as a gamer, he sees mechanics like that. Mechanically for him, the thought of something mechanically going wrong was what the terrified that overpowered the thrill of being on the ride. Whereas for me, I
Hmm.
don't think mechanically, so I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Hmm. Well,
Mm,
I think when we learn how to honor ourselves more, it's easier to honor other people,
mm, yeah, absolutely.
right? Where we have that understanding then in that respect for what that is versus being told all your life how you're supposed to do things.
Hmm.
For many of us, that's the experience. There's always somebody telling you what to do, what to believe, what's right, what's wrong.
Hmm.
And some people don't break out of it.
Mm-mm. It's
They're
that
always,
navigator, some people use the GPS on the car and some people don't. So for me, it's like when people are trying to help me understand something that's new to me, like parents do with their children. You're trying to get them to understand. You're helping them to navigate and teach them how to navigate the world and life and the different systems that are in place in our
mm-hmm,
world and society. But
mm-hmm.
some parents never were taught it. So they're bopping around, and then the kid is watching them bop around, so they start bopping around. That's why we have conversations like this. We
Yeah.
are navigating this together. You hit a certain age, you find your tribe, or you find people who are navigating it and doing it well. And then you say, okay, how do you do this? And then hopefully they show you and
Yeah.
then up level your life that way
If they know,
if they
if they
know.
know, like this idea of social emotional learning, that was not a thing when I was growing up.
Me
You're either
either.
a people person or you're not.
Hmm.
You're either a good listener or you're not. You either have compassion or you don't. You're actually courageous or you're not.
Hmm.
And I'm finding out now, as an adult that none of that is true. That
Mm-mm.
all of these things are practices. We can be better listeners. We can be more compassionate. We can learn what to do with uncomfortable feelings and emotions. It's practice. And it helps to have someone who has some knowledge or understanding to be able to model that.
Mhm. Yeah, but you
But
have
most
to
of
be
us didn't grow
willing.
up with that.
You have to start with the willingness to even be open to something that's different. And a lot of times that different thing comes with a scare factor to
Sure.
it. Because not only is it different and new, what if I don't do it right? Or what if it's dangerous because I heard about this thing or these people? So what if it's dangerous? So I
Hmm.
won't go over there and I won't talk to this person and I won't get to know my neighbor and I won't even remotely open myself to talking to others or even getting to know them because they look different and they sound different. And, I mean, all of
Right.
that stuff happens. That scare factor is there, but you have to be aware of and be willing to then say, even though I'm scared, I'm still going to step out of my box and do it
Yeah.
anyway.
Absolutely. There has to be a willingness. And we've probably had this conversation before, but when I'll say when I came into New Thought, I was so excited to find that there were other people that believed like I did. And then I want to share it with everybody.
Hmm.
And, I realized that it is really not for everybody because
Yeah.
not everyone has the desire. There are some people that, what, I learned everything I need to learn while I was in school. I'm not in school anymore. And I'm not up for learning or taking on something new. And that's their right. That's
Or their
that's
world is working just fine. They don't need nothing else.
yeah, exactly. Or their world is working. Their world is working. So why make any changes? Because it's already working as it is.
Hmm.
Um, Whereas that was not the case for me. Certainly there were things that were not working in my life, and I found the center at just the right time to give me a new thought, right? Change your thinking, change your life.
Yeah, lots of thinking happens. And I was already on that path, and then when I came across, like, stumbled into the center, me and the family, I was like, whoa, we get to sit and talk to each other about stuff. Like, it wasn't, oh, don't ask any questions, just go with the lesson. Like,
Right.
you just didn't ask where I came from
That
before.
was part of the
You weren't allowed
paradigm,
to
right?
ask.
You don't ask. There are people in
Yeah.
authority that have the answers. And if
Hmm.
they tell you what it is,
Then
you
that's what it
accept
is,
it,
Auntie.
and that's what it is, right?
Hmm. And
Right.
the only time you can ask is if it has something to do with them then telling you the stuff they know.
Yeah.
So it better be a question they know the answer to. Or if not, then you're being
Right.
rude or you're being, whatever label they want to put on you. Talkative, you talk too much, you ask too many questions.
You're too something.
You're too something.
Right. So let me ask you, was there something that you felt like you were very convinced of that you knew it, right? And then you realize, oh, wow, I didn't know what I thought I knew. And, therefore the paradigm shifts.
Mhm.
Or so and so, those authority figures maybe don't know all that I thought they knew.
Yeah, because I remember when you asked me that, and I was thinking about it, and it was when I first entered the shelter. Um, I was 16, almost 17, when I landed up in the system. HRS was it? Human. I don't remember what it stands for now, but I think it's DCF now.
Yeah. Department of
Um,
Children and
for
Families
families.
now.
Mhm, yeah,
Hmm.
and I thought that all the kids that were in any kind of group home or anything like that, I was always told were delinquents. These are problem children. You don't want to be around them. That bad influence, you name it, the label was put on these kids.
Hmm.
Um, when I ended up in the system, I thought these kids are gonna eat me alive because guess what? I'm not that at all, and I'm not very bad. I don't know how to fight. None of that. And lo and behold, I ended up at a group home with some of the most dynamic young women. And we learned and we grew and we cried and we laughed, and we are still sisters in our heart to this day. And it completely shifted the way that I learned of anyone in any institution. It changed the way I think about people now. And I'm glad I got that experience when I was young, because a lot of people don't get that experience until they start to interact with those bad folks. I started to
Hmm.
realize that yes, bad decisions are made, absolutely, but it's not a bad person.
Yeah.
And if you can connect to the person and then get to where their pain is, a lot of times the bad decision is a cry for help.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I'm feeling, so I'm going to do this, especially with kids. And so when I got with Norma and got the kids, and we were raising the children together, and their friends came along, and then we ended up having extra children in our home. And it was because I felt these are good children. May have made some bad decisions, but these are good children. And so I decided to just speak to the goodness, the potential.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I spoke to them, I said, "You're so good at blah, 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 blah." I always just said that. Even if they were poor at something else, I would still say, "You're so good at this. You can improve over here. Do you want to? I can show you how."
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
knowing that they had that, oh, I'm really good at interpersonal skills. I'm really creative. I'm a very good whatever.
Yeah.
Because that completely changes the way a person thinks and looks at themselves. And then they feel like you're a safe place to be so that they can show you all the other parts, including their pain.
Right. And some people have never had that safe place.
Never had the safe
You
space.
know, when you grow up in a home, let's say, where you're judged, or you're made to feel like, I guess nobody makes you feel, but when it starts out, you start out very young, and there are the voices of criticism and judgment continually. It's hard to break out of that. That
Mhm.
becomes your paradigm.
Yeah, it's all you know. So you assume
It's
that's
all you
all
know.
there is. That's all there
Yes.
is. And
Yeah.
until you are seen or shown a different way and a
Hmm.
different situation, you would never know because you would assume that that's all there is.
Exactly.
That
Exactly.
mental equivalent is not there. So I remember I had a young lady come over, and I told her mom, I said, let her spend the night. I'm going to show her a mental equivalent of something different, different kind of home, different environment, just something
Sure.
different. Because once you have that mental equivalent, you can say, oh, I know what's possible. That's why I
Right.
love TV so much, because I know what's possible.
Hmm.
If it exists for somebody else, it can exist for me too.
Right. So for people who don't know that phrase, mental equivalent, you want to expand on that a little bit?
Okay, so for me, the mental equivalent is just being able to see that thing.
Hmm.
So, for example, let's say if I wanted to go to, I don't know, a tropical island, and I live in the mountains and I've only heard of tropical island, it's out there somewhere. But then one day I come to Florida from, out of the mountain, and I go to a beach and I stand on the ocean and I go, whoa, a tropical island could feel like this. Definitely book me a trip. I have now had a mental equivalent of what this could be
Right. So you give people the possibility. That's what the
possible.
mental equivalent is. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a similar situation. I think mine was working with the prisoners, with these incarcerated men at Marion Correctional, in doing this very same work, the same thing that we're going to be sharing throughout this year, starting with paradigms and talking about courage and feelings and trauma and like all of that stuff. And I grew up in a house of law enforcement officers. My dad being a cop, and my husband, and now my daughter, and so I was around police officers all the time. And the people that they incarcerate were dangerous, scary folks. And so I took that chance, to volunteer one day, and it just totally changed my life, completely changed my life. Now, I will say that the people that were in the classes, I started out as part of a Toastmaster group, and then I started teaching classes, and then, helped develop this program. Um, they wanted to be there. It wasn't somebody telling them they had to be. It was a choice. So they had the desire already to learn and to want to get some of these tools for transformation. And so it wasn't the general prison population, but it was a group of people that had the desire. Like you said, Donna, you have to want to make the change.
Mhm.
And if you have that, you start with that desire, you can do anything. But if you don't have it, there is no amount of pushing or prodding that somebody else can do that will make you step into it. It's just
Mhm.
not going to happen. So it's also part of why I love this teaching, that it really is always an invitation.
Mm,
Consider this possibility, consider that possibility. It's not, this is how you have to believe.
mhm. I like that it's open at the top because I thought when I was saying at lunch today, I felt like I was weird because I thought, why can't I just like a little bit of all of it? Why do I have to pick one? I loved doing meditation. I love doing praise and worship. I love doing chanting and incense and dancing around the fire. I like doing all of these different things. Why do I have to pick just one? And when
Hmm.
I found the center, it was that feeling of God's everywhere, which means all of it's God. So when
Yeah.
I can dive into that, like, man, I remember the first time I went to a concert and was in a mosh pit. It was an interesting
Hmm.
experience.
Hmm. Hmm.
Imagine, right? But it was so much fun. And I thought I would have missed out on this amazing thing because I was always told you'll get trampled.
Yeah.
That's what I was always told. It's dangerous. You'll get trampled. These people are horrible. Blah, 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 you name it. And then when I experienced it, it was a completely different, joyful thing that was just incredible. And I would not change that experience for the world. And now when I hear somebody saying that stuff, I'm like, nope, that's not true. I
Yeah.
experienced it. It's not like that. Not to
Right.
say that other experiences can't happen, because somebody can have a bad experience with something.
Sure.
And so now we're going from their experience and their thoughts on the matter. So we're just giving people a different way to look at it. That's all.
That, and consider the source.
Mm. Consider the source. Yep.
Consider the source, which takes us to the last question, because we need to start wrapping it up here.
Mhm.
Um, for people who are still lost, right? They're in the forest. They can't see the forest for the trees because there's so much in it, in their stuff. How, like what practices, what do you use to help pull you out of the paradigm, let's say, and get that objectivity? To realize, oh wow, this is some BS. This is a belief system that was put on me,
Mhm.
right? And but it doesn't need to rule me.
Mhm. I, I think my biggest practice that I always use is that same God's everywhere.
Hmm.
And then I come from, if God's everywhere, is this a lesson for me? Is this God trying to tell me something?
Yeah.
And that usually puts me in like an observer type space where I can then observe the story unfolding. And then I'll tell people, okay, it's a drop in the bucket of time, because anytime I'm going through this experience, I keep saying to myself, this is a drop in the bucket of time. 10 years from now, I'm not going to remember this experience like this. So then I
Hmm.
can say, oh, wait, God's everywhere. Then what am I learning here? What's being
Hmm.
offered to me? And then I
Hmm.
try to, it's hard because, and that practice, because when you're in it, you're being flooded with all kinds of hormones and your fight or flight is kicked in or whatever is happening to you. And you
Hmm.
have to constantly say, wait a minute, and wrangle that ego back in and say, wait, where am I? What am I doing? What's happening to
Hmm.
I call it my physical form. Where's my physical form? Oh yeah, I'm right here. My
Yeah.
form is watching this. And then I can step out of the moment, sometimes just for 2 seconds. And then other times I can step out for the entire, whatever that is,
Yeah.
and just watch it.
Yeah. I agree. I think meditative processes and mindfulness processes
Mm,
are,
mindfulness.
like, yeah, really important. Whether you're meditating, staying in a single spot, or you do a walking meditation or whatever that is, to get your mind out of that thinking mode. Because it's kind of like, when the water settles, when the water is turbulent, right? Things are moving around. It's all mixed up. It's cloudy. It's murky. You can't see. But when you can calm down, things settle, right? The mud settles to the bottom. The stuff, some stuff goes to the bottom and some stuff rises to the top, where you can kind of see it and like skim it off. Oh, there you are, and let go of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think mindfulness and meditation are really important processes. And the other thing that I do personally, Donna, like you, it's a little bit different spin on what you said, was to use mirror, exercises, and look at people and situations and see, now, how is that a reflection of me? I think this is showing me something that I obviously I need to see it because it's coming to my attention. how is this a reflection of me? Is there something I need to let go of? Is there something to forgive? Is there something to accept? And that gives me a different frame. That is a thing that helps me break out of my, this is the way it is. This is the way it's always been. This is the way it's always going to be. This is the way it is for me, and break out of that to see what else is possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let's see if we have any questions here. We do. Deep breathing, taking that extra minute. That was from Norma. And then let's see. Susan Allen said, I should have seen this before because we moved on from the topic, but let me see what she's got here. Many challenges happen when someone's world is working for them, but not working for their significant other or for others who intersect their world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's one of the things we say is that our vision is a world that works for everybody, for everyone. So if the world is working for me, but it's not working for my husband, then it's not working so much for me either.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
there's that idea of like leaning into the discomfort, leaning into that difficult conversation. Um, yeah, it's we're building some muscle here. We're building
Into
some
the
skill.
compromise, and into the,
Mm.
the sharing. And I think, because I tell people, I walk in the world because my wife is so good at what she does. She takes care of me. I never have to worry about myself.
Mhm.
But then I'm focused on her and what her needs are. So I'm taking care of her because she does such a beautiful job taking care of me. I don't want her
Yeah,
going nowhere, you know? But it's
yeah,
that leaning in. So if something is working for me but doesn't work for her, then I can say, okay, can we find something? You need a conversation. You need can we find something that works for both?
right.
But you won't know unless you have that conversation with the other person, no matter how scary they look and how different they
Sure.
look. Just
Yeah,
being willing to have the conversation. Some people don't want the conversation. They don't want to
mhm,
converse, and that's okay. You wait for them, or you just let them pass and let them keep going. But for
yeah,
those who are willing to speak and to be heard, I think, and you have to be willing to openly with your heart listen.
yeah. And that goes to the second part of Susan's question was how do you get them then to the discussion table when they don't want their world or their worldview to change? And so I think what you've just said is we can't force people.
No,
We can't force people to the
there's an
table.
invitation to dinner,
It's
and
an
if they say
invitation.
no thanks, then you bless them and let them move on.
And maybe also to be in that space of creating that mental equivalent for something else.
Mhm.
Because when the pain is bad enough, people will make the change,
Mhm.
right? So I think for us as religious scientists or whatever we're calling ourselves these days, to understand that creative process and that everything is created twice, right? So it's always starts up here in somebody's mind and before it is out there in reality. So what is the possibility? Like, what would a great relationship look like?
Mhm.
What would it look like, if you could speak your mind and I could speak mine? What would it look like if all of our needs were met? To just create that bigger possibility
Yeah.
for
But it
people.
starts with me,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. It's like if a person doesn't have a mental equivalent of the possibility, I could tell them all day it's not going to do
Mm-hmm.
nothing, and they may never come to the table. But
Mm-hmm.
if I
Mm-hmm.
start with me and my approach and my willingness to be open and to listen, and my
Mm-hmm.
willingness to bring my full vulnerable self, because it's going to be very vulnerable to be out there like that, that pain could happen to me too. But if I
Mm-hmm.
come into that with that willingness and I start to create the vessel that is the safety, then people are more willing to be more open, even if it's a little tiny, tiny bit.
Right. As Angel's saying here, it's sad that it has to get bad sometimes for things to happen. But I think that's, part of how we are as human beings.
The
Or
suffering.
or we could take like knowing I'm on this spiritual path and therefore I'm going to lean into the discomfort that I might not have been willing to do 10 to 15 years ago. I definitely am much more willing and capable now than I was back then to lean into some of those things.
And
But
here's that paradigm shift, which
mhm,
is what happened for me, is that the suffering is not real. That's the paradigm shift. We came in beautifully perfect,
mhm,
and then we were domesticated. What if we, as the people who are now aware, start to raise our children from that vibration already that says, yes, suffering can happen as an experience, but it's not who you are, and you don't have to
mhm,
stay there. Who you
mhm,
are is someone who experiences different things throughout their life, and that the suffering is just the experience. And we can let go of that and just know what the truth is. And the truth is, we are spiritual beings having an experience.
yeah,
And if we can start them with that, then their wonder, like we talked about today, may never get shut down, and
yeah,
their joy may never be squished, even while they're experiencing something that may be painful.
right. Yeah,
What a
yeah.
cool, right? Instead of being down, now
Yes,
you have to relearn everything, and oh gosh, the world is full of blah 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 blah. Insert whatever here.
right. But we know that we can find joy even in the midst of the pain and the drama. Like,
Hmm.
we know that's possible. We've
And
talked
we can
about that.
create human beings coming in that don't have that. The more of us that become awakened, and the more of us that become consciously tapped in to the greater allness, the more that we can then share that with our kids.
Yeah. Well, Donna, I think that's a great way to wrap it up. Yes, we're yes. Good thing. Like we can keep talking about this next week and the week after that. We will just continue this conversation. Let's see if there's anything else we want to say here. I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good. The quote that I had. Let me see if I actually made it onto the quote because it was the title for today. It was the greatest obstacle to discovery, right? The greatest obstacle to discovery is not ignorance. It's not knowing, right? It's the illusion of knowledge. It's the belief that we already know. So why look? That is the greatest obstacle to discovery. So I just want to close out and encourage people to look into those places, even when you think you know the answer. There might be another perspective, there might be another view, right? Like, say, why can't I lose this 20 pounds? Why does it hang out? Well, that's something to dig into. Right? Just stay in the inquiry, keep asking the questions and ask good quality questions. So, what do you want to say? Anything in closing, Donna?
No, I think you hit it. You hit it right on the head there. I was just reading some of the comments, and just the intuition is number one for one of our guests. She was saying that intuition was number one for her, and
Yeah.
I have Rosemary. Sorry, I agree. Intuition. I always go back to that first, and I say, is this for me to do? Is this mine to do? And my intuition will say yes or no.
Yeah.
And if it's a no, then I give a sacred no.
Yeah.
Now must go, right? Now must go.
I think
Like
all
Angela
of us
says,
could.
now must go. Instead of namaste,
Yes.
I'm a namaste go.
All right, girl. Well, I guess with that, let me put up our for people that might want to donate to the center. And I want to thank you, Donna. We're not doing our Zoom conversation after this because we had a live gathering this morning. I think that's it.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, my dear. Thank you for another lovely
You're
conversation.
so
I'm so grateful for
welcome.
you. And we'll talk again next week.
All
Same
right.
same time, same channel, right?
Yep. You got
All
it.
right. Love you. Thank
All right.
you.
Bye, everybody.
See ya. All right. Yes. So it's time for our giving, sharing of our gifts and tides. Is that it right there? Yes, sharing our gifts and tides. So this Center for Spiritual Living, this virtual ministry that we're doing, the center itself, it is all like, freestanding. We don't get money from any place or anyone other than the people who are watching, the folks who are in alignment with this vision and mission. And so, if you are spiritually fed here, if you like to be part of this community, if you like what we're doing and want to see it continue and to grow, then please help us. And you can do that by donating either of your time here at the center in person or of your finances. And we've got some really great and easy ways for folks to tithe. You can go to cslocala.org/donate, or you can text to tithe, which is, if you've got a smartphone, you text 352-320-5110. Once you set it up, you put in the amount you would like to donate, and it goes right from your account to ours. And it's super easy, and it feels really good. And so here is our affirmation. It is the nature of life to give of itself. As it is the tree's nature to bear fruit and the flower's nature to bloom, it is my nature to share the gifts of my time, talent, and treasure. I participate in the divine flow of life, giving generously and receiving abundantly. I am blessed and I am a blessing. And for this, I am so very grateful. And so what's going on here at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala this Friday at 7, we're showing the movie Soul. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's an animated Disney Pixar film that's just really phenomenal, and it speaks to the theme of wonder and paradigms and possibilities. And so I invite you to join us. Bring the kids. There'll be popcorn, and that's at 7. And then the following Sunday, which I believe is the 31st. Yes, it is. The 30th, excuse me. January 30th is our annual meeting. So if you are interested in finding out where we are as a center, where we're heading, this would be a great time to join us for our annual meeting. And what else? We're going to have a vision board workshop coming up the first weekend in February. So we'll send out information about that as well. And let's see if there's anything else. Anybody want to send me a chat in case I miss anything? And I'm going to assume that's a no. Nothing else. So we will go ahead and close out then with our prayer for protection. It goes this way: the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. I know that is the truth for you. And I just affirm that as you go into your life experience this week, that any potential stumbling blocks turn into stepping stones to whatever it is that is wanting to manifest in your life. And so I just affirm love and peace and an abundance of good in your life. And I hope you have a fabulous week. Join us for Soul if you can. Love and blessings.